Welcome to week 7 on 9 weeks in NESCAC Football Podcast alongside NESCAC insider Dave Bagatelle. Chris Grace back with you. We are through 6 weeks, and what a crazy week 6 we had. We're going to talk about everything that happened last week. We're going to preview next week games. We're going to bring you Dave's new power rankings. We also have a couple great interviews for you coming right up. We're going to speak with Middlebury head football coach Doug Mandigo, who had quite the weekend. We're also going to catch up with a very impressive signal caller for the Williams College East, as Owen McHugh will be on our podcast. All that and more coming right up. But first, we want to remind you that 9 weeks in NESCAC Football Podcast is brought to you in connection with Game Day Sports. Transform your game day experience with Game Day Sports, your ultimate partner in celebrating athletic excellence. They specialize in collaborating with teams to elevate their presence and create memorable keepsakes for every fan and player. They have over 25 years of experience working with NESCAC teams. Trust Game Day Sports to bring your team's story to life in vibrant print materials. Dave, my man, how's it going? Pretty exciting week 6 we just experienced, eh?
Hey, Chris, great to be here. Can't believe it's 6 weeks already. It feels like the season just started. And yeah, it was a great, unbelievable week. Every game except for one was decided by a touchdown or less. We had one of our first upsets of the year. And so it was a great competitive week in the NESCAC.
Yeah, it's a lot to talk about, but let's not waste any time. Let's jump right in. There were quite a few games that we were going to highlight going into this week, but I think let's just go right down from the top. We spoke with Coach Mills last week, and we knew that Colby was a very talented football team, and boy, did the Mules show up. I think they've had just about enough of losing close games as they traveled to Amherst and put it on, they hosted Amherst and put it on the Mammoths with a dominant 38-7 performance as Colby picks up their second win in the season.
So I'm not surprised that Amherst only scored 7 points. What was most surprising to me was the offensive outburst from the Colby Mules. My thinking coming in was Amherst defense was pretty good, and I thought Colby's offense was okay, not spectacular, and they just rolled it up. And of course, the Colby defense is good, and the Amherst offense is struggling. As we talked to Coach Mills, they've had a lot of, on top of having some issues at the skill positions, they have a lot of injuries in the offensive line, and it showed. So 2 weeks ago, they had 1 yard rushing, and when you think you can't actually do worse than that, this week against Colby, they had -3 yards rushing. They're actually, of 239 Division III teams, they're 238th in the country in rushing the ball. So that's not going to get it done, not the NESCAC.
Yeah, it's a tough recipe for success, but the Mammoths will have plenty to play for as they kick off their little 3 slate, and we'll preview that a little bit later on in the podcast. Another team that struggles at times offensively, but never struggles in terms of effort, and that's Bates. And they went to Williams and gave the Eves everything they could handle, as Coach Coyne's young Bobcat team fell just short of a huge road victory as they almost knocked off their second little 3-team in 3 tries this year. Quite the ball game over in Williamstown.
Yeah, Bates had an opportunity to win this game at the end. Big stop by Williams. Bates plays very hard, and they're playing a lot of freshmen and sophomores. They have a senior quarterback who's very experienced. They run the flex option, which, we've talked about it before. Teams just do not face that kind of offense anymore. It's tough to simulate in practice. And the more the season goes on, they're running it better and better. They now have Ryan Linsky, who leads the NESCAC in rushing. They got Sergio Beltran back, who they've moved into sort of a hybrid wide receiver tailback, and he's been running the ball well. When Bates doesn't turn the ball over, they can stay in any game. And their senior quarterback, Basile, did not have any interceptions last week. They actually threw the ball 21 times, that's a monumentous number. That's a huge number for Bates. And I have to say that Williams got a little bit conservative here at the end of it, and it almost cost them. And I'm sure Williams is just very glad at home to come away with the 3-point win. And that keeps Williams in the hunt, frankly.
Yeah, still mathematically alive for a NESCAC championship are the Eafs. Still plenty of big games left on their schedule. Another team that has struggled but continues to really account themselves nicely in spite of the fact that they haven't picked up a win yet this year. Hamilton really played toughs to the wire in Medford. Another good performance for the Continentals, but the Jumbo is able to hold off Hamilton for a 20-13 victory as Tufts gets the better of the visitors from New York.
Yeah, kudos to Hamilton. I didn't really, frankly, give them much of a chance traveling on the road. They were coming in 0-5. And the quarterback, Luke Curzum, he was offensive. He was just overall rookie of the year last year, the NESCAC. Really had his best day as a signal caller for Hamilton. He had a hell of a day, really threw the ball. They have a couple of very capable receivers. So they gave Tufts all they can handle. And surprisingly, they played pretty well defensively. And once again, Tufts, I think, was very happy to come away with a very close win playing at home.
Yeah, so we had 5 games last week, as we do every week, and 4 of the 5 home teams won. The one outlier was the game that Dave was at, which was Wesleyan 17, Bowdoin 14. This game went exactly how I thought it was going to go. This is a Bowdoin team that really shows flashes defensively, and Wesleyan has struggled at times offensively. The Cardinals didn't do a lot through the air in this one, but got a couple of big performances on the ground, and that was able to get them just enough with their solid defense to get across the line in Maine.
Yeah, first of all, Wesleyan has always had a problem playing up in Bowdoin. Frankly, since the days that I played there in the 80s, it's always just been a house of horrors going up there. To Bowdoin's credit, it was a family weekend up there. And I think they had the biggest crowd, the NESCAC, over the weekend. It was a very good crowd. Crowd was really into it, which was great to see. Really, you like to see the enthusiasm spreading throughout the league. Coach Hammer, he's building some excitement there. He's got some really good players on the team. Their defense, they fly around. They blitz every play. And they gave Wesleyan's offensive line, and their offense just fits. I think they had 8 sacks. They had a whole bunch of quarterback hurries. They had a whole bunch of tackle for losses. Our friend Coy Price, who we had on the show week 1, had a heck of a day. So they had a great day defensively. The one thing that defense is susceptible to give up is the long play. They gave up a long running play. You get it to the second level, and there's not a lot there. They did struggle offensively. Now, I will say this. Wesleyan's defense is tops of the NESCAC in yards. They're one of the top-ranked teams, frankly, in the country in terms of points, in terms of yards given up. They're not slouches, but Wesleyan's defense really did control the game other than one long play that they gave up.
Yeah, but full credit to the Cardinals. It's not an easy place to play, and not to say it's a trap game, because at this point in the season, there really are no trap games with the competitiveness of this league. Every game sets up its own challenge. The goal for Wesleyan traveling to Maine was to get out of there with a victory. Now the Cardinals, one of 3 teams in the NESCAC that controls their own destiny. Full credit to Coach Dice and the Cardinals as they will get ready for their first little 3 game of the year, which we will preview more down the road in the pod. But the game that we were really looking forward to, Dave, the game that we focused on last week, and the game that one of us thought was going to be a blowout. Boy, were one of us wrong, as Middlebury, for the 2nd straight year and the 5th time in 11 seasons, gets the better of Trinity. This is a Trinity team that has been dominant, maybe not in first half, but they have dominated when it comes to halftime adjustments and what they've done in the second half. This game, they led at halftime, but Middlebury pitched a shutout in the second half. A great late touchdown catch. And the Panthers just have that special sauce when it comes to figuring out how to take down the Bantams, and they did it again for the second straight year. Trinity with just 2 losses over the last 2 calendar years, both of them coming to the Panthers. Sometimes you hype up games, you don't know what you're going to get. This was everything we were hoping for. Great performance and just a great football game.
Yeah, I was 4-1 last week with my picks, and if you had told me I was 4-1 and the one game I would have lost was the Trinity Middlebury game, I would have told you were crazy. But that was my loss. I've only lost 3 games on the year, 27-3, and that Trinity Middlebury game is one of them. Going next year, I'll just tell you right now, I'm not going against Coach Mandigo. He seems to have it going on against Trinity. He's 2-0 against them in his head coaching career. Just a really superb effort by his student athletes and by the coaching staff. Middlebury is a tough place to play, no question about it. But Trinity came in. The last loss they had was to Middlebury. I think the last time, they don't lose very often to a team 2 years in a row. Last time was to Williams about 5 or 6 years ago. So they kudos to Middlebury for winning that game. They've now won 5 in a row since the game 1 loss to Wesleyan, and they control their own destiny in the league. There's 3 5-1 teams. They're one of them. Any of those 3, they win out, and they're going to at least get a share of the NESCAC championship.
Yeah, I think it's obvious that with Coach Mandigo's background being a defensive guy, there are some games that really align for a defensive head coach. And what Middlebury did very well, obviously, the last 2 years, is that they're able to do kind of what Trinity does to a lot of other teams, which is bend but don't break, rely on their pass rush that could get to the quarterback with 4, and then you can drop back and cover 2 and not give up the big play. And that's what they did in this one, and it was clearly a recipe for success. You shut out the prolific Trinity offense for 30 minutes, let alone the last 30 minutes in a competitive game. And as you said, this is a Trinity team that's walking into this game, and they're saying for the whole week, this is what kept us from an undefeated season. This is the team that put the asterisk on our NESCAC championship. This is the team that took something from us last year. So they got their best punch. So to me, that victory is worth 1.5 games because that's not your average victory. Listen, folks, my co-host is not afraid to toot his own horn when it comes to these picks. Very rarely since I have known this man does he get it wrong. Almost never does he get it wrong when he says, I think a team's going to win by double digits and they lose. I don't know that I've ever witnessed that. Excuse me, not counting Wesleyan, because he's never picked Wesleyan to lose, and I've seen Wesleyan lose by double digits before. However, so for that to happen, that speaks to the competitiveness, and it speaks to the elevated play at the quarterback position from Middlebury. We'll talk to Coach Mandigo about this later today. Brian Moran, NESCAC Offensive Player of the Week. We saw him early in the season, Dave, and quite frankly, didn't seem like he was at game speed yet. And it's tough when there's no preseason. It's tough when you don't get to really play any live scrimmages. But he's playing his best football right now, and you wouldn't bet against the Panthers the rest of the way.
No, he's the court, as we all know, and the quarterback's extremely important. And he has raised the level of his game throughout the season. The quarterback is Brian Moran we're talking about, who, by the way, won NESCAC Offensive Player of the Week last week. He is playing at a completely different level than he played earlier in the year when I saw him in person up in Middlebury. And I watched a good part of the game, the Trinity Middlebury game, and some of the throws that he made were just really special. Now, some great catches and great patterns by his receivers as well, and his offensive line did a great job blocking for him, but really just phenomenal effort by him, and hats off to him. And with the guy playing, obviously he's a good player, he's a good size student athlete. Now he's playing with confidence. It'd be tough to bet against Middlebury the rest of the way these last 3 games.
Yeah, certainly. And it speaks to the nature of the league, too. The hardest thing in this league is to have a new quarterback because you can't control who you play in week 1. It's not like you're at a D1 school and you can schedule a 1AA team, or you can schedule, probably going to upset some people here, but you could schedule UMass or whomever and get your guys some reps in a safe situation. You can't do that in this league unless the schedule makers give you a break. And really, there aren't any breaks anymore in this league. And Wesleyan came ready to play in week 1. And who knows what that game would look like if they played again today. But Middlebury's certainly a different team since the second half of that Bowdoin game. And they've won a couple of close games. And I think, Coach Mandigo is, I think, well aware of one thing that Middlebury had going for them that Trinity really didn't is Middlebury's battle tested in close games. They've won a lot of close games the last couple of years. And this year they've had to win a couple close games. They had to come back against Bowdoin. They had to hold off Williams, right? Was it Williams or Tufts? No, Williams, excuse me, in overtime, right? Was that just last week, the Williams?
That was last week.
So just last week they were in a dogfight. And this is a Trinity team that has played a few closer games than normal this year, but nothing like that. It's a different vibe when you're in the fourth quarter and the other team has the ball, a touchdown beats you. Different deal. And yeah, full credit to the Panthers.
Yeah, that's Trinity's, they're very good. Are they a juggernaut? Are they what they were last year? I don't think so. Certainly the stats will bear that out, but they're a very good football team and they're going to be right in the mix at the end of the year. Mark my words.
Yeah, no, be fool's gold to think anything other than that. So look, that's week 6 of 9 weeks. Dave and I are going to take a quick break. And we come back. We've got a couple interviews for you. And then we're going to preview week 7. That's right. Already week 7 of 9 weeks from NESCAC. We'll have it for you right after this. Welcome back to 9 Weeks in NESCAC Football Podcast, brought to you in collaboration with Game Day Sports. Alongside Dave Bagatelle, Chris Grace back with you. It is our pleasure to welcome in Williams Eve signal caller, Owen McHugh. Eve's having a nice season, 4-2. Looking forward to a big game this weekend at home in Williamstown as they take on the Tufts Jumbos. They've got some big games left on their schedule, still 2 Little 3 games, the biggest little game in America with Amherst still on the schedule. But Owen, it's really been a nice season for you guys as you seem to really be going in an upward trajectory. And you personally have had a really nice year. Talk about, first of all, welcome to the podcast, but talk about your journey, how you ended up at Williams, and what your first couple of years in Williamstown have been like for you as both a student and an athlete.
Yeah. First of all, thank you guys for having me on. I originally was a baseball recruit coming out of high school. I didn't start until my senior year at quarterbacks. I was behind Chase Vaughn, who's now at Wesleyan, so I have with him. Yeah, we were good friends. And just senior year, my coach reached out. He wanted me to look at some of the schools in the NESCAC, obviously great institutions. And Coach Scarpa, who was the quarterbacks coach at the time, reached out, came to a bunch of games, talked to him a lot. Him and Coach Raymond came on a visit. I loved it. And that's how I ended up here. In terms of my first year, I've really enjoyed it so far. So it can be tough with school and athletics at the same time, but it's a great group of guys. We have a lot of fun and just great friendships. So it's been great so far.
So this is Owen. Great meeting you and really appreciate you coming on. It was your second year. You started as a first year, which is fairly unusual in this league. Your second year, seem like your game has definitely gone up a whole nother level. What do you attribute that to?
Yeah, I think it's attributed to a lot of stuff. Coaches, Coach Rourke, who's our quarterbacks coach, and he works with the receivers a lot here. He came in the late July of last summer. So just learning his offense took some time to adjust. And I think just building the connection with the receivers. This year we got a bunch of new guys at the position and all these tight ends. So just building a connection with them, learning the offense and just getting bigger and stronger. Last year as a freshman, I came in really small and wasn't able to run the ball and throw with some power really effectively. So just learning the offense, getting used to the pace. I think just a lot of that stuff.
You mentioned running the football. You're a guy who does carry a lot of the load offensively on the ground. Speaking about, as a fellow guy who's not 6'3", speak about the challenges that go along with being a physical runner and also having to worry about distributing the football throughout the course of the game and stay healthy. What's that been like? What's the work been like in the weight room? And where do you think your biggest value is for the team? Is it through the air or is it on the ground or is it a mix of both? How do you see yourself within the offense?
Yeah, I think it's a mix of both. Probably more importantly be the pass game. We've had, or Williams as a whole over the years, have had a really strong foundation in the run game. We have a couple of really good running backs in Mario Fischetti, John Orris, Will Shesky, and a really strong line up front. So I think getting the ball to some of our athletes in space in terms of my job is probably the most important. But adding a little dynamic in the run game can put a lot of stress on the defense. So I think that balance has been a focal point for our offense. I forgot the initial question.
No, I guess the other question was, what are the physical demands that go with someone who's not 6'3", 240, running the football that much and trying to stay healthy for 9 weeks?
Yeah, definitely. A big thing for me is just maintaining weight throughout the season. Yeah, I get really banged up in the games. A lot of the times just running the ball. Middlebury had some massive D-line, and one has a really great D-line as well. So just needing to protect myself, go out of bounds, slide when I can, but also just got to fight for the extra yards as well on those 3rd and 4th downs. So
embrace college, because that's the time where you can eat whatever you want. So
yeah,
just keep packing those pounds on them, brother.
So you come into Williams, did you have any idea about the Little Three, and what do you think about that now?
Yeah, no, it's a great tradition. I didn't know much about it. When I was looking here, my coach sent me a couple of videos of the walk, just that like huge tradition. And yeah, no, honestly, I knew Chase is going to Wesleyan. But other than that, I never really heard of Amherst or Williams before getting recruited here. So it's just totally different from what I've been used to.
And you mentioned Wesleyan. Obviously, you guys have a big game this week, but in a couple weeks' time, it's going to be your first time playing on the road in a Little Three game at Wesleyan. Now, with it, when you're at Williams Amherst game is always a really big deal, obviously. But when you're at Wesleyan, whether it's Amherst or Williams, and that game always falls on homecoming, it is a big deal. So have you seen or heard of, what to expect in that game? Because let me tell you, someone who's broadcast a lot of them, it's a different environment than any other game. We're talking 5,000 to 8,000 people, standing room only all around. It's going to be a wild atmosphere. Have you talked to any of your guys who have experienced that and told you what that was like?
Yeah. I've never played there. Actually, I played baseball there.
Same field.
Yeah, same field. But yeah, some of my teammates have been talking about it, and they think it's so cool that the field's right in the middle of campus. It feels like people are on top of you. It's a wild atmosphere, and they've really mentioned that, and they're excited for that because it's just something totally different, as you said.
Yeah, it'll be a lot of fun. Of course, you guys got to win this week, and Wesleyan's got to win this week, and they'll make the game that much more interesting.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Both teams still in the mix, so that's a lot of fun. Coming from high school into college, and you're obviously starting quarterback, there's a lot to learn, I'm sure you spent a lot of time watching film, a lot of time chalk talk, and obviously Williams, very challenging academically. What's it been like balancing the athletics and the academics side of the equation?
For me, I've always just been like a guy that just gets his work done. So in terms of like academics and athletics, I think it's demanding, but it's definitely doable, especially if I'm more into my athletics than like my social life. So I don't care for doing anything extra. I just get my work done and I try and get all my focus on that week's game. So that's been fine. But in terms of like the adjustment from high school to college, my high school coach, we ran a spread offense, and he's a really knowledgeable guy. And so I think a lot of the concepts have been the same, but just putting it into our terminology and really getting that down and working on the chemistry with my teammates has been the focus.
And you talked about being a baseball player. Envision yourself at this point as more of a baseball player or a football player, or do you now, as a starting quarterback, you have to identify yourself as a football player, right? But your first love was baseball. How do you explain that?
No, when people ask, I like them both, but I consider myself more of a football player. Those are my best friends on the campus are the football guys, and it's really time consuming. I spend all my time with them. I definitely consider myself more of a football guy.
Understandable. Listen, starting quarterbacks, plenty of guys in the baseball field, very few starting quarterbacks. That's probably a better answer. Dave, I know you've got a segment we like to do every week. It's 9 weeks, 9 questions. Dave Bagatelle is going to fire away at you. Answer as honestly as you feel comfortable. It's probably not going to be that painful, but you never know with Dave. So fire away.
They're all softball questions. They're pretty painless. Owen, the audience wants to learn a little bit more about you, so we're going to fire away our 9 week, 9 questions. First question, what's your major?
Economics.
Excellent. What's your favorite class?
Right now, maybe like I have a sociology class on sports. That's probably my most.
Yeah, that was my favorite. That's a good one.
Yeah.
All the answers without having to get the book. It's fantastic.
Exactly.
So Third question, if you did not attend Williams, where would you have gone to school?
UMass Lowell, probably. I was going to go there for baseball, but maybe Tufts. I got recruited by them late, but
There you go. I just had dinner at Lowell, coming home from the game last week at Tavern on the Square, or Tavern in the Square. It was excellent. Good sports bar. Check it out.
all right.
They're not a sponsor. Maybe we should get them as a sponsor, Chris.
All right. We'll see maybe for next year.
Exactly. Oh, and I know you're only a sophomore, but you probably thought about this a little bit. What's next after football and after Williams?
To be honest, I'm not quite sure. Definitely with all my teammates, I get to hear what their takes on it and what they're doing. So I've been experimenting, thinking about certain things, but what most people will probably say is a job in finance, but we'll see. I like sports, so I consider coaching an option as well.
Excellent. Listen, embrace the journey. Focus on the food. Focus on the sports for now. Career will come later.
Yeah, that's fine. That's the advice that the 5th years have been giving me. I don't even think about it. They're saying.
There you go. So this is one of my favorite questions. Owen, who's your role model?
My role model? Probably my grandfather. I was very tight with him. I spent a lot of time with him, and he's just a great guy. Yeah, very grateful for him.
Great. Awesome. And who's your favorite football team? Professional football team?
New England Patriots.
All right.
Yeah.
And what's your favorite food?
Probably buffalo chicken.
All right. And this week, you got a big game against Tufts. What should we look for this week from Owen and the Williams Eves against Tufts?
Hopefully a lot of points. It's a big game. I think it'll be an energizing atmosphere, and hopefully we can feed off of it and bring a lot of physicality. So
great. And my last question, and I'll turn it back to Chris. What does Owen like to do in his free time? Doesn't sound like you have a lot, but what do you do when you have some free time?
At school, I just hang out with some of my friends. We'll watch the football games, play NCAA, that kind of stuff.
Owen and I are very simpatico. I could go Buffalo Wings. NCAA football and chill would work for me right now. I'm going to ask my wife if I have permission, but something tells me no.
It's your anniversary, Chris. You can't be playing NCAA on your anniversary.
Congrats.
No. Thank you.
Just third anniversary.
You can get me in trouble. No, listen, Owen, I think what you guys have done from last year, this year has been fantastic. We're super excited to see what happens this week, but more importantly, just to see you keep building on what you're doing. Just talking to you, obviously you got a great head on your shoulders, and I'm sure you've got as fun as the season has been, you've got quite a few big games left on your schedule, really. So you got 3 really big games left on your schedule. I'm sure all of them are going to present their own unique challenges. So we wish you good health and good luck, and we look forward to maybe catching up with you when you're in Middletown for the Williams Wesleyan game. But until then, we certainly appreciate you taking some time for us.
Thank you for having me on. It's an honor. I appreciate it.
That is.
I was just going to say, we definitely appreciate you, and we appreciate you coming on the podcast. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
That is Owen McHugh, sophomore signal caller for the Williams College Eves. They'll be traveling to Medford they'll be hosting,
Yeah.
They'll be hosting the Jumbos in Williamstown. Short journey. So he'll be able to have the friendly confines of whatever dorm room he's currently residing in right now. We'll be paying attention on Saturday as that game takes place. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, Dave and I will preview week 7 of 9 weeks of NESCAC. Back with more right after this. Welcome back to 9 weeks in NESCAC Football Podcast, brought to you by Game Day Sports. Transform your game day experience with Game Day Sports, your ultimate partner in celebrating athletic excellence. They specialize in collaborating with teams to elevate their presence and create memorable keepsakes for every fan and player. With over 25 years experience working with NESCAC teams, trust Game Day Sports to bring your team story to life in vibrant print materials, ensuring every game day is one to remember. Now, what a segue as we welcome in a guy who had quite the game day experience just a few days ago as we enter week 7, coming in at 5-1, the hottest team in the NESCAC, Middlebury Panther head coach in his 2nd season in charge of the organization, but he has been a longtime defensive coordinator, longtime NESCAC football coach, Doug Mandigo. Welcome to our podcast. Congratulations on the big win against Trinity. We're pumped to have you on.
Yeah, Dave and Chris, thanks for that, and thanks for having me on. It's a great thing you guys are doing, and really excited to be with you guys.
So, Coach, obviously in the forefront right now is the big result against Trinity. That's what everyone's thinking about and talking about. But to me, someone who covers Wesleyan football on a regular basis and seeing where you guys were in week one and seeing where you guys are now, in particular the offensive side of the ball, seeing how much your quarterback play has elevated, seemed to me like the real turning point of your season was the last drive of the first half against Bowdoin. We were watching that game. It looked like you guys were dead in the water, and then all of a sudden got a big drive in the 2-minute as you head towards halftime. You guys dominated the second half and never looked back. Talk about coming off a championship season and the expectations and then getting knocked down early, but how your team has bounced back. It's got to make you feel pretty good as the head guy.
Yeah, first of all, we never panicked. We never got down on ourselves. We never pointed fingers. We certainly, the results of the first game, Wesleyan's a really strong team, and they played a great game that day. So you got to give them credit. And they played flawlessly, and we made a ton of mistakes. So those combine those two things, and that's the result you got. But our guys have been in a lot of good, tight football games the last few years. A lot of our guys that have played a lot of football. So we had the resolve. We weren't panicking. We said not pointing fingers. We're ready to move on in Bowdoin. And same thing. We struggled in the first half, the first quarter, and really the first 28 minutes of the game. But we got a couple breaks on defense, forced them to kick late, and Brian made a couple really good throws and got the ball in the hands of some of our guys. And next year we're going to halftime only down 12-7. And that really gave our guys a bunch of life, and we really rallied. There was a lot of energy in halftime when we came out. And it really, since that drive, Brian has been a different kid. He was NESCAC Player of the Week last week. He's just, his poise, his confidence has increased every week. We have good players around him. We have good coaches that are supporting him, and all those things coming together, and just his experience and just a growing confidence. He cares. Like I always say this about guys in the sports, guys who care, right? Guys who really bring care to the table are going to be successful. He does that, and he's worked at it, never panicked, works his tail off, and things are starting to progress for him. And it can't be happier for anybody than Brian, because he really is a dedicated teammate and a football player and loves the game. So that has been a pivotal piece to how our season has turned last 5 games.
Yeah, you're down 21-14 to Trinity. They've been a second half team all year. They've really done really pretty incredible things. You look at the amount of points they've scored in the second half. You go in and you come out, and as we were talking about earlier, you hold the team scoreless in the second half. You guys put up 10 points. You come away with the win. Of course, just an amazing catch at the end of the game to win the game. I've watched it probably half a dozen times. Just a great catch. Talk a little bit about the second half, the adjustments you made, and you really came out. And obviously, you guys, the last 2 years, I think the last time Williams lost to a team 2 years in a row was, I think, Williams 18-19, something like that. So love to hear a little bit about what you guys did in the second half differently to come away with the win.
Really, I don't think we made many X and O adjustments. I think we stuck to our game plan. We got a couple breaks. We got a good strip sack. And that's the thing that Trinity does. They're a well-coached team, defense, but Mark Melnitsky does a really good job on offense coaching those quarterbacks. If you notice, they had zero. He's throwing, the quarterback's throwing 0 interceptions, correct?
None all year.
And they fumbled against us, and that was the first time. Last year was the same thing. Federer threw 0 interceptions going in the game. I think we picked them off twice that game, including a big one in the fourth quarter. That's one of the reasons why, again, this league is so competitive. It's so tight. The room for error is so small in these games. You look at the scores all the way around. Bates losing to Williams last week by 3. Wesleyan and Hamilton. Wesleyan Bowdoin. There's just so many tight games that it comes down to critical situations, critical plays that really can determine a game. And Trinity, to their credit, one of the reasons why they have so much success, they have great players, but they're very well coached, and they don't make mistakes, right? They don't turn the ball over. They're almost perfect going in. You have to execute, and you're trying to develop. You try to develop some big plays, and we did. We got a punt. We had a fake punt in the second half, in the third quarter. We got the strip back. We decided to bring a little more pressure in the second half, and I think that helped us a little bit and get that strip sack. Again, it's such a tight window, such a tight game in this league that those critical plays, and we made a couple more plays in the second half than they did that I think really determined it. Again, not really much from an X and O adjustment. We just felt like we just needed to keep what we were doing, play a little better, tackle better, things like that. We missed a couple key tackles in the first half on big plays for them. And that's the thing. You really want to limit their big plays. They have really good speed and they double move quite a bit, things like that on the outside. You're really going to try to limit the big plays for them. And if you can do that and hang in the game, you can be in the game in the fourth quarter. They're not used to playing in those situations that often in the fourth quarter where it's a tighter game. So we know that same thing last year. It was a tight game in the fourth quarter. We got a late touchdown to go ahead. And luckily held on. Same thing this year. We got close game in the fourth, and we were able to make a couple critical plays, and that's the difference.
Yeah, if you could, your background being a defensive coordinator for better than a decade at Middlebury, and you get the opportunity to become the head coach. And year one, you guys win an NESCAC championship. Year two, you now, after dropping the opener to Wesleyan, you guys control your own destiny to, at a minimum, share another NESCAC championship. This head coaching thing's going pretty well for you. It's been a pretty good transition. We talked to Mike Whalen about, some of the challenges of taking over for a legendary head coach. And talk about what your transition has been like. And obviously you have years and years of coaching experience. You come from a family of coaches. It's not like you're new to the game, but you're new to being the guy. Talk about what that experience has been like and some of the things that maybe you weren't expected that have been a little different, and obviously the things that have gone smoothly for you.
First of all, a huge amount of credit to Bob Ritter, who I worked under, who was a fantastic coach and a fantastic human being, an unbelievable parent, an unbelievable husband. Like you want to have someone to look up to for all those things. It's Bob Ritter. And on purpose, he could have taken that team we had last year, had a lot of senior veteran, a senior quarterback, a lot of senior leaders, good players. He could have stayed on for that year last year and then wrote off after that, knowing we'd have a good team. And he didn't. And I know he didn't. He did it on purpose. He let me, knowing that my first year could have a really good team on the field, and so much credits to him. And then we always, as the defensive coordinator, it was like we were two head coaches. He never ever got involved in the defense. I always had my own autonomy. He never came over, never said anything. If I asked him a question, he would obviously give some input, but I had my own autonomy. And so, again, I can't say enough about him and the culture he built here. And obviously Middlebury College in general, this is a really special place. The athletic program here, we've won 49 NCAA national titles since NESCAC has gone into the NCAAs. That's 49. That's by far the most in NESCAC. And it's a tribute to our culture here and our AD Aaron Quinn and just the level of coaching, the quality of people here. And as far as just being a head coach, the things that you got to do, you're managing 100 or so guys we have on our team right now, and their academics and their things, their social life and their mental health and their families and just different things that come into play, just the logistics, things on campus that you have to deal with. Those are things that now I deal with more and less of the X and O. I do still coach the linebackers on the field, but I have two coordinators here, phenomenal people. Ryan Paquette took over defense and is a far superior coach than I am. And Jason Thomas as well took over for Ritt with the OC duties. And Dave Caputi here, the long-time veteran, Colt Bowden, and Williams coach, Joe Bowden head coach. Having him on my staff, his knowledge, his mentorship you can't put a price on that. And to have those people around me, and again, to be at a place like Middlebury, just makes it so much rewarding, but a lot easier too.
Yeah, you had a ton of success. And obviously last year, just to, go back a little bit, just curious what your feeling is, and maybe, hopefully you won't give me the politically correct answer, but you beat Trinity. You both end up with the same record, and you're declared co-champions because of the NESCAC rule. I certainly have my own opinion on that. Just curious what your feelings were on that, and what the rule is in the league with co-champs, even though you beat them head to head.
We follow the rules, and I was thrilled for our guys for the season they had, and respect the rules in NESCAC. I think everybody knows that if you're a competitor, if you understand how sports work, how athletics and the level of competition, and NESCAC is really competitive, right? If you understand that, then you know who was the champion last year. And I think the Trinity guys know that as well. They understand that. And again, no, they had a great season. They're an unbelievable program. And trust me, I haven't lost any sleep over the fact that we weren't declared the outright champion. I was thrilled for our season and for our players. And we know that we beat Trinity last year. And they know too. So regardless of the semantics of the official title, I think the competitors and all of us understand, I guess, who was the real champion. And again, no disrespect to Trinity there.
Of course.
Yeah,
It was a great year. Yeah.
Coach, you don't have to worry. This is an unofficial NESCAC podcast, so you don't have to pull any punches here. There's a big disclaimer that goes in. We are in no way affiliated with the NESCAC. We're just trying to promote the NESCAC. So anyone who knows sports I think would agree with you here. I had one thing I wanted to bring up. We watched your quarterback play earlier this year, and to me, I'm saying you guys are flying around the ball on defense. You got seems like a litany of running backs, which is evident by the amount of guys that are getting touches in the backfield. Yep. You got experienced wide receivers. You got a ton of talent coming back on defense. But there was a real struggle in the beginning of the year with the quarterback play. But it seemed like in the second half of the Bowdoin game, Brian Moran settled down a little bit, and he's just really, obviously, you talk about him being NESCAC Offensive Player of the Week, but you talk about how quality of a kid he is, but talk about the things you've seen with his development. What has made him more successful as the season has gone on, you think, from a coach's perspective?
First of all, Chris, and I have lunch, because I spend my time coaching on defense for the most part. I have lunch every Tuesday with Brian. We have lunch together, and I did that with Cole Kennan last year, just so he and I can talk and go through the game last week and the team and going through this week's game. So I've built a really good relationship with Brian. And like I said, he has a high level of care, right? He's a really bright guy, very smart. He's an econ major with a high GPA, very smart, very mature, but he really likes football. He really works at his craft, right? And that's a huge, to be an athlete, you want to be a competitor, and you got to have a high level of care. What that means is you got to put a lot of urgency, a lot of care, a lot of, dedicated, real work into what you're doing. And he does that. So, he's 6'4", he's got a good live arm that's really improved since he got here as a freshman. I just think it was just a matter of him getting more experience and feeling comfortable. And we talked about it as a staff. We got to do what we can do to make him comfortable and to make him have confidence in himself and the guys around him. And that's really what it was. And we knew we would do it. He's that kind of kid. And you understand, especially at Middlebury, we've had a long line of quarterbacks here. We go back Donnie McKillop and Mac Foot, and we went to Cole last year. We've had a litany of guys that have been really good or all league or in that echelon. And I think Brian's in that caliber. He needed some time. He needed some experience. And I think he has the ability to do it. And you all know that quarterback's the most important position and the hardest position in sports to play, right? Hockey goalie, starting pitcher in baseball, and quarterback. And for us, we throw the ball a lot. And it's how our quarterback plays is really going to be a factor in our success of our team. And Brian knows that. And he's getting more comfortable and confident. And that's really important to our team.
Yeah, so you have 3 games left, right? 9 weeks. You've got 2 games on the road starting this week. You go up to Lewiston to play Bates. Obviously, little different offense than everybody else in the league runs. They're running the flex option now, which obviously presents some challenges. And then you've got Hamilton at home, and then you travel, of course, to Medford to face Tufts. Talk a little bit about Bates and the challenges that offense presents and what Coach Coyne's got going on, and then maybe a little bit about Hamilton and Tufts as well.
Yeah. Oh, I'm so impressed with Bates. You watch them on film. First of all, they play their tails off. Matt's done an awesome job motivating those kids. You can tell they play hard. I'm sure he's a great person and a really good motivator. And so I'm sure he's gotten those guys that run through a wall for him. It sure seems like that watching them on film. Their D-line are nonstop pressure. They run to the ball incredibly well on defense. And then on offense, they've got a really good scheme that they're really getting better at as the season goes on. They're learning. Again, the coaching in this league, guys, is excellent in NESCAC, right? It's excellent coaching. Mitchell Thompson is a very good young football coach. 2 years ago, my last year as the DC, he gave me a new one, trust me. And when we went up to Bates, he showed me what it was like to be a bad defensive coordinator. So he's a good football coach, really smart, and is really is developing that group, and they've got some really good players. I think the fullback is excellent. They've got 2 quarterbacks. They can make plays and some speed on the perimeter. So they're a dangerous team. And then you got to go up there to boot. You got to go to me. But I'm really impressed with now. I'm not surprised. I think when you hire coaches in this league, and I'm one of them because I was an assistant that got hired, but hiring somebody with experience in this league, I think, is valuable. And Matt was an assistant at Wesleyan, did a good job, but he knew this and played in this league. He knew this league and how to recruit and how the ins and outs. And so I think that was a really unbelievable hire for Bates, and it's really paying off. They're a much better team this year than they were last year. And again, a lot of it's because they played a lot of young kids last year and they're more experienced. So it was just a matter of time. They're doing a phenomenal job. They're a good football team. And trust me, our guys, we're going there ready to play. We have a ton of respect for them, and I'm not making it up. Like, they're a good football team. Look at their scores. Look at the defense. They haven't given up many points, right? They don't give up big plays. They don't give up a lot of long runs. They don't give up passes over the top. They know what they're doing, and the kids have bought in. So can't say enough about that. But they're good. They're a good team.
Yeah, listen, I called the Wesleyan Bates game, and there was nothing fluky about that result. Bates was the team on that particular day that didn't make mistakes and took care of the football and played incredibly hard. Like you said, they're a little undersized, but they play incredibly hard, and it's 8, 9 guys rallying to the football on every play on defense. As a defensive guy, I'm sure you're hammering home to your guys who don't face option teams. You don't face anyone who huddles, not that they huddle, but taking care of that responsibility against the dive play. So you let the dive play get going, and then it's going to be a long night for the defense. So I'm sure you have plenty to prepare for, so we won't take much more of your time. We've enjoyed this. I just got to ask you one quick question. Just looking at your career path, you had a quick session working in the UFL for the Hartford team. And correct me if I'm wrong, but was Josh McHugh was Josh McHugh one of the guys? So tell me about that experience. That had to be a pretty unique experience, not to shift away from NESCAC too much, but there was someone who's covered independent league baseball and seen some of these guys at that crossroads in their career, probably saw some really high-level guys in that short period of time.
Yeah, we certainly did. We had a number of guys that had NFL games under their belt. And I coached in the secondary. I coached the safeties. And I had my 2 starters the 3 guys that rotated in all had NFL game experience. And 2 guys were SEC guys, Georgia, South Carolina. The other 3rd guy played at Oklahoma. So they played high level. I went from NESCAC to coaching these 3 guys from the NFL/SEC. So it was a really good experience. But the thing that I really liked, a couple of things that I really remember, was 1, the professionalism of the players. It was their craft. It was their profession. It was their way of life. And a lot of they come from different backgrounds, and a lot of kids you get in NESCAC. And then Coach Palmer was the head coach.
Yeah.
And what a phenomenal guy. He was a really good mentor. The thing I liked about him as a head coach was he would get on you if you made a mistake or you thought you were doing something that needed to be corrected, but then he would forget about it and move on and go back to having that relationship with you. I thought that was a really good quality for him, just to not hold grudges, not hold anything against coaches or players. I thought that was a great quality. He was a great man. I really enjoyed him and enjoyed the experience. And yeah, Josh was our quarterback. That's right. Really good guy. I remember him. He had really religious guy, very man of faith, had a bunch of kids. And interestingly enough, I saw him my good friend is the linebacker coach for the Minnesota Vikings. And I was out with the Vikings in the spring for OTAs for about a week. And Josh McHugh, he's the quarterback coach of the Minnesota Vikings.
Wow.
So we reminisced a little bit about the Hartford Colonials because, those guys lived in a hotel, and he had a bunch of NFL games under his belt, and this was crazy for him. We practiced at Berlin High School.
Oh yeah, right on the Berlin Turnpike. I know. I was catching shifts at the miniature golf course across the street, so I was all over that.
Yeah. You couldn't get through it, though.
Yeah, Josh McHugh, and I'm pretty sure he was with the Jets with Kevin O'Connell when he was with the Jets at the same time. So I wonder if that's how they connected.
It makes sense.
That would make sense. That's a good gig to be a quarterback coach there right now.
Yeah.
Dave, I don't know if you have anything else. If not, I know Coach is getting ready for a big game this week. So
no, other than just wishing you good luck the rest of the way, Coach, and just want to say we appreciate you and we appreciate you coming on. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys, and I enjoyed this, and again, appreciate what you guys are doing. I think it's great for the league and in the players, and it's a lot of good players. You've seen some guys, some guys have gone on now to Division I places. And tomorrow we'll have the Arizona Cardinals will be in our place. It's the 17th NFL team that's in to watch our off left guard Thomas Perry. We've had 17 NFL teams, and Seattle's coming back Friday to watch them a second time.
Wow.
So there's good players in the league and really good kids and good people, and the coaches are good people and really good coaches. Thanks for doing this. I think it's good for the conference.
Look, Coach, we wish you all the best of luck. On a personal note, shout out Ali Paquette. That's my buddy. Tell her to pub the heck out of this, okay? Tell her to get after it, all right? There's no better young SID in really the country than Ali. So we loved her when she was at Wesleyan, and I know obviously it was a great opportunity for her to go to Middlebury and be with her family, but we certainly miss her in Middletown. So all the best I know she has a young kid too. So all the best to Ali and Coach Paquette and her family, and all the best to you. Good luck this week. Good luck the rest of the way.
Thanks, guys. You have a great night.
All right, to go. That's head coach Doug Mandigo of the 5-1 Middlebury Panthers, coming off a big win against Trinity as they get ready to prepare for the option of the Bates Bobcats. We got more coming right up. Dave and I will give you our predictions. What's going to happen in week 7 of 9 weeks of NESCAC. Back with more right after this. Welcome back to 9 weeks of NESCAC Football Podcast, brought to you by our friends at Game Day Sports, along with Dave Bagatelle. Chris Grace back with you. Dave, there are many things that will rile up the, let's just say, pesky and passionate and vociferous NESCAC message board fans, other than NESCAC man Dave Bagatelle's power rankings. So let me tell you, I had a look at them just a little while ago before we went on air, and there's fodder for thought there. I don't want you to explain it. I just want you to tell everyone what the power rankings are, and then I will try to stand up for my man. So tell everyone what the big changes are in the power rankings this week.
Obviously, coming into this week, our number 1 ranked team was Trinity, and Trinity lost. They lost to Middlebury. Our big change in the power rankings are we have a new number 1 this week. Our number 2 coming into this week was Wesleyan. They were ranked ahead of Middlebury, who was 3.
Before you give everyone the explanation, let's give them the 1 to 10. Give them the 1 to 10.
Yeah. So based on the poll of our NESCAC experts, the number 1 ranked team is Wesleyan.
Yeah.
And the number 2 ranked team is now Middlebury. And the number 3 ranked team is Trinity. They're all 5-1. And then below the next 2 teams after that are Williams and Tufts at 4-2. We won't get into the rest of the teams until later because it really doesn't matter. But those are the 5 teams in the mix, really top 3 teams. Yeah.
Those are the 5 teams that still have everything to play for the rest of the season other than pride. Now, before you jump down my man's throat, let me just spitball here with you for a second. There are 3 teams that are 5-1. Wesleyan is 5-1, Middlebury is 5-1, and Trinity is 5-1. Wesleyan has only played one of those teams, which is Middlebury. And what was the final score of the Wesleyan-Middlebury game in week 1?
It was 43-7.
43-7. That's pretty convincing. Now, Trinity has only played one of those teams, and that was Middlebury. And what was the score of that game? It's 24-21 in favor of Middlebury this past week. Wesleyan and Trinity has played the final week of the season. So, to my man's credit, based on the data that we have right now, there can't be any other team than Wesleyan to be the number 1 team in objective power rankings. And Dave Bagatelle is nothing if not an objective fan of the NESCAC, more so than he is a fan of Wesleyan. I want everyone to know that. He takes these power rankings very seriously. And he hasn't had Wesleyan as the number 1 ranked team, even when they beat Middlebury. He respected the process, and now he's respecting the process. So please feel free to hammer him as much as you want, but I had to get that out there before anyone comes after me.
I think we're consistent. Look, time's going to tell these last 3 weeks. Wesleyan still has to play Trinity in week 9. All the teams still have 3 games. Middlebury still has, they've got a very hard playing Bates team on the road. Not going to be an easy game. Of course, they have Hamilton at home. Hamilton hasn't won a game. And then they finish up on the road at Tufts, which is a big rivalry. Tufts-Middlebury. That's not going to be a cakewalk. Wesleyan of course, they've beaten Tufts and Middlebury. What I would love, frankly, is Middlebury wins these next 2 weeks. Trinity wins these next 2 weeks. Wesleyan wins these next 2 weeks. Everybody is 7-1 going into last week. And then we've got a true playoff situation. Wesley and Trinity, one of those teams will lose. They're out. And the winner of that game is going to get a share of the title, potentially, if Middlebury can beat Tufts.
Wow. And
that would be exciting, Chris. That'd be a lot of fun. But we got 3 weeks of football left to play. I will make one comment, and just to remind everybody, they've been playing for an NESCAC championship since 2000 in this league. There has never been a team with 2 losses to have any share of the NESCAC championship. So it's either 0 losses, which we're not going to have this year. There's no unbeaten teams, or 1 loss. So, it is conceivable we have a 2-loss team. Now, if we start getting into 2 losses, then you start getting into scenarios where Tufts and Williams come back into play. But
here's the scenario is Wesleyan beats Trinity. Wesleyan loses to Williams. Middlebury loses to Tufts.
And
Williams wins
Tufts.
Williams beats Tufts and Amherst. Williams beats Tufts and Amherst.
And Wesleyan. Yeah, they all roll out.
And then you'd have a 4-way tie, and you would have the truest definition of NESCAC quad champions.
You know what? Let's really.
I'm saying not crazy. Those are not all of those Dave Bagatelle point spreads are going to be under a touchdown. I can tell you that. So that's not a crazy scenario.
Let's really hope that doesn't happen, because it's bad enough when you have a split and you don't go ahead for the champion like we had last year. But a 4-way. Yeah.
Listen, here's the other thing that people don't realize. Back in the day, there was like that. There's the AP poll. There was the coaches poll. There was the UPI poll.
Right.
There's going to be a 9 weeks of NESCAC champion, even if there's a tie. Okay. So there might be an official NESCAC champion. There's going to be an unofficial NESCAC champion that we will be crowning, and we will be presenting with, I don't know, we'll figure it out. We'll
I'm going to tell you, whatever we give away will be better than the banner that NESCAC gives away. I'll tell you that right now. We're going to get a belt. We're going to get a belt or a big trophy or something that we're going to give away. It'll be something prized that everybody's going to want. Mark my words.
To be determined, but
and we're going to get the coach on here and all of his players, and we're going to present them with the unofficial NESCAC championship.
You said it. Dave, real quick, as we look at next week's games and we start to preview next week's games, there's a lot of stuff on here that looks like potentially it's chalk, but there's a couple of games that kind of stand out to me. First and foremost, obviously, I think the game of the week is clearly Tufts and Williams, and we'll spend more time talking about that one. But there's a couple of games I'm interested in Bowdoin and Trinity, not because I think that Trinity is not going to bounce back. I think they are, but I think when you have to prepare for a Bowdoin team that has been competitive and that creates problems defensively against a team that didn't score any points in the second half, I'm just more curious to see what the scoreline is going to be in this game. I think you could see any number of things happen in that game, and that's a tough turnaround for Trinity, having to come back after losing in Vermont and having to take on Bowdoin.
It's going to be an interesting game. Trinity has a knack for keeping games close to the half. Other than last week, they always make the adjustments and come out and steamroll their opponent. I think that we could have that kind of situation this week in Hartford. I just don't think that's going to really, that situation, that game is going to bode, that kind of defense is going to really work well against Trinity. I also don't, the Bowdoin offense is not at the same level, with all due respect to Bowdoin, as their defense is. And I think points are going to be at a premium for them that game. Plus, they're playing in Hartford. And let's face it, very challenging place for away teams to play.
So I'm guessing you like Trinity in that game.
Yeah, I'm going to take the Bantams in that game. Yeah.
Okay, so now Bates, who's been competitive. We spoke with Coach Mandigo, had great things to say about Coach Coyne. That's a tough place to play. Middlebury's got to travel to Lewiston. I don't know what that trip is, but it can't be fun.
I'm glad I'm not making it, Chris.
You come of a hard-fought victories over Williams at Trinity. Geez, what a gauntlet that is. And now you got to prepare for the triple option when what must feel like a short week. Do you give the Bobcats a chance to hang around in this one?
Yeah, I do. I think that this game's going to be closer than people realize. I think Middlebury will come away with a win. I don't think it's going to be easy by any stretch. Bates is playing better every week. If they can not turn the ball over, that's a key for them. If Basile can not create turnovers via the air. By the way, Seneca Moore, their second quarterback, had a huge game last year against Middlebury. So He didn't play a lot last week, and I think you'll see a little bit more of him this week, assuming he's not injured. And Bates' defense, they're undersized, as you've noted weeks before, but they are very athletic. They fly around with the ball. They give maximum effort. They're playing at home. And Middlebury's due for a little bit of a letdown, a little bit of an emotional letdown. They're coming off of, as you noted, overtime game against Williams, big win over Trinity. They're tied for first place. They've won 5 in a row. They'll come out a little bit flat. I think they do pull it out, but I think it's going to be a much closer game than people think.
And we traveled to Clinton, New York, where Colby, coming off their big win against Amherst, looking for 2 in a row. It would be 3 out of 4 for the Mules. Their 2-4 record really doesn't speak to just how competitive of a football team they've been against the Hamilton team, in spite of their 0-6 mark, has found a way to be very respectable the last handful of weeks. Do you see a scenario where Hamilton's able to find their first victory, or do you think there's just too much talent on the Colby side of the ball?
Yeah, I think Colby's defense is too good. I think of the 4 units on the field, actually 6 if you count special teams, I think Colby's defense is the best of the collection of units. They've got a couple guys that are playing at a very high level. Number 50, Julian Young, he's going to be in the mix for Defensive Player of the Year. He's having a big year for Colby. They're coming off a big win at Amherst. So I think Hamilton maybe keeps it close for a while, but I'm going to look for Colby to win here by probably a couple touchdowns.
And then the Little 3 kicks off in Amherst, a 1 p.m. start at Pratt Field, as the Cardinals will look to keep their NESCAC championship hopes alive as they take on the purple and white. Amherst has really struggled offensively, but one of these deals, it's like Army-Navy. This year, I wouldn't say you could throw the records away with Army-Navy, but in general, throw the records away. Amherst is always going to play Wesleyan tough. I'm very interested to see after that opening victory over Middlebury. Wesleyan hasn't blown anybody out. So until I see it with my own eyes, this is going to be a 4-quarter football game at Amherst.
So a Little 3 game, as you said, throw everything out the window. At this point, Amherst, really all they have to play for is the Little 3. After a 2-0 start, they've lost 4 straight. They have not looked great the last couple of weeks, particularly their offense. Their defense was playing very well. They struggled last week against Colby, which is a little bit surprising to me. There are a lot of turnovers, a lot of sacks, put their defense in a tough situation. Wesleyan's defense is the best in the league, and one of the best defenses, frankly, in the entire country. Senior laden, a lot of experience. They're playing at a very high level. I think Amherst is going to have a really tough time scoring. They're certainly not going to be able to run the ball. Wesleyan's the top rushing defense in the NESCAC. Amherst is one of the worst rushing attacks in the country, as we noted earlier. So they're going to have to throw the ball. When they've thrown the ball, they've thrown a lot of interceptions. They lead the NESCAC interceptions. They're now on their 3rd quarterback of the year. He's a young player. He's either a first year or a sophomore. Athletic. He's inexperienced. And Wesleyan seems to feast on those kinds of players. What I would like to see if I was a Wesleyan fan is I'd like to see their offense finally get going. They've been on a little run here where the offense has been a little bit challenged, and it would be nice to see them put some points on the board and play with a little bit more consistency. There have been spurts here, certainly. They've got some great athletes. They have the 3rd rated quarterback in passing efficiency in the league. Chase Wilson's one of the top receivers in the league. They've got an impressive running back with a long rush last week, Q. So you want to see them. You want to see them finally score 28, 30 points, something like that. So a win like last year, I think Wesleyan won 34-7, would be in the ballpark that if I was a Wesleyan fan, that's what I would be looking for on Saturday.
Yes, if you were a Wesleyan fan, that's what you would be looking for.
Hypothetically, of course.
Hypothetically speaking. One more game, our game of the week, Tufts Williams. Listen, this is a big game. Both teams are 4-2. It's in Williamstown. Look, I think this game could go anywhere. Williams has been a very good team, very good team at home. I'm just going to defer to you here. How do you see this one playing out?
Yeah, this is really interesting because it's an elimination game. Both teams come in 4-2. Loser is effectively out of the race. Not effectively. They're going to they're not going to have any chance. They're out of the race. Williams is probably, in my mind, a year ahead of where Bates is. They're a young team. They've got a lot of people are building up the experience. I think the difference being they have a really good senior running back. They have some really dynamic players. The quarterback who we're going to be talking to in a couple minutes, very good player, playing a lot better than he played as a first year, young quarterback. But Tufts has a lot of experience. I think Michael Berluti definitely misses some of the guys from last year, Chartelis Reese and Jaden Richardson and guys like that aren't there anymore. And you can definitely see the impact there. They had some graduations of the offensive line. They're not the same team offensively. They lost some guys defensively. At this game, I think my feeling is I'm going to go with the home team. And I think it's going to be a very close game. I'm thinking a field goal. Game could go overtime very easily. I think it's going to be a very close, competitive game. And I'm looking forward to watching this game. I think it's going to be a really interesting game to watch. I think it'll be a big crowd and it should be a lot of fun.
Only one way to find out. You got to watch the games, and we're certainly going to tune into those on Saturday. Dave, as we wrap up another week here on 9 weeks, there's only a few more of these left to go, but we've said it every week. We're going to know more when we do this next week where we're at, but certainly seems like this is one of those years. All 9 of those weeks are going to matter. So I look forward to talking more NESCAC football with you next week. Safe travels as you will be making the trip to Amherst, Massachusetts, I would imagine, to watch some Little 3 football. I'll be tuning in from home, but certainly, actually, I think I'm going to be broadcasting some soccer on Saturday. So I'll be watching on my phone, but we'll certainly be able to provide some perspective next week on all this. But we appreciate everyone who's contributed to the podcast, continues to support the podcast, say nice things. Please feel free to reach out to us at 9 Weeks NESCAC on all forums. So for Dave Bagatelle, for Owen McHugh, and for Doug Mandigo, and of course for Game Time Sports, our sponsor, we appreciate you tuning in. Until next time, you are listening to 9 Weeks NESCAC Football Podcast. So long, everybody.